All-Star weekend here in the NBA, but that doesn't mean the Drive-In Dish NBA does not stop. We still got topics to talk about. A little bit of All-Star game talk is going to happen because you listening to this podcast already know the results. If you watched, if anybody watched, um, we do not know the results. We're recording this Saturday morning, so we're still going to talk odds and stuff like that. You can play around and laugh at us for being completely off or
I
whatnot.
guess we know the celebrity game results, but that's about it.
Dude, did you watch the celebrity game at all? I've seen clips. I didn't care to watch it. I'll be completely honest.
I didn't watch it. I didn't watch it. I saw the clip of Giannis trash talking Mark Davis by accident to Richard Jefferson, which is hilarious.
Who was it Guillermo from, is it Fallon that he's on? Because he was in this All-Star game. He shot
I think
it
he's on Jimmy Kimmel, but yeah.
Kimmel. Okay, he got a wedgie. Like he shot it and got it stuck up there, which is
I
like
thought
kind
you
of
were
like
gonna say somebody gave a wedgie during the game. I'm like, bro, what's going on?
I saw 2 clips with him. No, he got the ball stuck and then like celebrated because he did it. And he tried to bring pizza to Shaq and the guys, but it wasn't Papa John's. So Shaq was like very adamant about making sure he got the hell away from him.
Is that ever weird for Shaq when you endorse everything? Like, I feel like you got to worry about that all the time.
Dude, quite literally everything. Because, in radio, we do endorsements. Not to do a selfish plug, but, selfish plug here.
Whoa. They are not paying us right now on this. Keep that at your real job. They got no free plug here.
But even like, because I am with them, like I do have to think of other energy drinks and make sure like I don't even on air say something about like an energy drink and how I like, you know what I mean? Like there is that. So, but like you said, for Shaq, who endorses quite literally in every kind of category, you got to be careful. Like, God forbid you get in an Uber that's not the car you endorse. Like, you could be in trouble.
I think he does endorse cars too. That's what's crazy. I'm pretty sure he has a Buick endorsement.
Was he with he's with Buick now, but was he with Kia at one point? Or am I thinking of Blake
Griffin?
Griffin?
Well, whole NBA was, so that feels right, but I'm not 100%. Because that's why Blake Griffin jumped over that Kia back in the day.
But remember, maybe it was Kia. Remember there was those commercials where they joked about how the seats would go far enough back for Shaq? Was that Buick or was that, I feel like that was Kia. I could be wrong.
I feel like that might have been Buick, because I feel like that's the one I associated with. I know I saw first off, I can't believe I was at Staples, but I was at Staples recently and I saw a poster of Shaq with Epson printer cartridges and I'm just like, fam. I'm like, fam. Like that is just it's everywhere. He's the greatest endorser of all time.
I'm trying to see if I can pull up how many endorse. Oh, here we go. That's his investments, which I guess top 50 Shaq endorsements.
My favorite part of the past few NBA All-Star weekends is that they just haven't remotely spaced the cold and warm locations at all. So like last year it was in Cleveland. This year it's in Salt Lake City, which is for sure freezing at this time of year. And next year I looked it up. It's in Indianapolis, which is also confirmed freezing at this time of year. So I'm sure I bet that's love what the All-Stars do on their time off. They get to go to a freezing city instead of going somewhere tropical like the rest of the league.
Dude, this is this list of Shaq endorsements. I'm trying to get to number 1. So number 1,
how are they ranked?
So Sports Illustrated did the top 50 Shaq endorsements ranked. So this isn't all of them, but his number 1 is Burger King. I guess he had a Shaq pack at one point.
Wait, it's not Reebok?
No, Reebok's 3 on this.
I think Reebok would be a lock for 1 with the sneakers.
Nah, but think about this. Number 2 is triple double Oreos.
I don't even remember that. How is that like number 2?
Good though. Listen, you give me any kind of an Oreo that doesn't have the bare minimum stuff in between. And
Justin, I agree, but that's not the point here. The point is I don't remember that ad at all.
That's fair. Number 3 is Reebok. Number 4 is Wheaties, which actually was him in the Miami, like he's holding a basketball back. Pepsi, Shack Attack Pepsi. I don't remember that one. Mr. Big, which looks to be like, I can't tell if it's beef jerky or a chocolate bar.
Where's like the general car insurance? He's still doing that.
7 is Icy Hot. There we go.
That's a good one. The icy hot back patch. Yeah, no, for sure.
Number 9 is Taco Bell. I don't necessarily remember the Taco Bell
How is
one.
the icy hot back patch not higher?
Yeah, right? Like, number 7, I feel like we always hear about that. Apparently, he had a Shaq vodka, but they have an asterisk next to it saying this never actually got released, otherwise it would have been top 10. How is that an endorsement then?
It's not. Wait a minute. Yeah, we're just giving up products that don't exist.
Buick, there it is at number 12. Vitamin water at 14. I didn't know he was vitamin water.
If there were
NB
a product that we could get to endorse us, I think about all the products that I would actually like real life endorse and stand by.
Yeah.
Icy Hot is genuinely one of them.
Oh,
Icy Hot
yeah.
is miraculous. Like
100%.
I can't believe how well that stuff works. Like I've had times where like I'll have finished a run and my
Mhm.
legs will be so stiff that it's like a pain to walk around, and you rub some Icy Hot on and you're just good. It's like I go run again.
Um, apparently he endorsed Nintendo DS Tamagotchi Life as he was a Tamagotchi.
That's hilarious. That's big.
Um,
That's actually hilarious. Especially if
um,
they made him giant and way bigger than all the other ones.
there's just Chris Christie's on here. It's number 27. That's funny. A lot of drinks. Shaq Fu Punch, which was an Arizona beverage company.
I've had Shaq soda. No joke. I've had
Okay. Yeah.
Shaq
Oh,
soda.
yeah.
I'll
That's the
have to
next
tweet
one.
the picture. I got that. That was one of the random thing I ran into it, dude. Is when I moved to Jacksonville. It's one of those things where you're like, you're out here grocery shopping and you just look over where it's like, I don't even know if this is going to be good or not, but I have to get it just because of the can. The can was hilarious.
Mm, I'm trying to see. So what they said was number 50 on this list was
How
a
are there
sleep
50?
sleep. That's that. There's probably more. Number 50 is a sleep apnea mask. Number 49 is a power balance bracelet. And then number 47 is a sugar substitute. It looks like I don't know what it's called. Quick. I can't read it. Quick sticks. It's a glucose thing. I don't know.
I have no idea, but that is insane. That's even beyond what I thought before. Wow. Yeah, I mean, truly the greatest product endorser of all time. I think there's not many better out there than Shaq. Um, what else is going on All Star Weekend? I know the 3-point contest is tonight, and I know the big thing that everybody's been talking about is I forget who got swapped out of it, but Julius Randle was their replacement,
Mm.
and like, what, Justin? Why is Julius Randle in the 3-point competition this year?
Why
Like, Julius
not?
Randle, because he's shooting well for his position. I understand that. And Julius Randle's having a great season, but like, he's 3 points below the league average from a 3-point percentage. Why is this guy in the 3-point contest?
Listen, anybody's willing to jump in,
No, I get that
just
they're
let it
trying to put
go.
a couple forwards in there, but like, you've got Tatum in there, you've got Marketing in there. That's
Yeah.
plenty. Just get a guard in there.
I mean, I agree. I just pulled up the 3-point contest odds. Obviously, Randall is not in the top 3 uh odds wise to win. Damian Lillard's number 1, Buddy Hield's number 2, Tatum's number 3. But Hield and Lillard are essentially tied for
Well,
first at
Blues
plus
got some value then if they're lower. How about don't sleep on Kevin Herter. Kevin Herter's
or
been bagging
marketing
shots all year.
or marketing. I remember I mean, come on. He's got that three-pointer down. So I don't know. Again, I feel like I personally wouldn't bet on the 3-point contest, but I also know a lot of people are going to do it anyway.
I love the 3-point contest. To me, honestly, the 3-point contest and the skills contest have become my
Yeah.
favorite parts of All-Star Weekend. I mean, the game is fun in the fourth. The dunk contest obviously has the biggest potential, but like, man, when
But
the dunk
does it?
contest is bad, it's bad.
Well, and so, this sounds bad, and I know, we do a basketball podcast. I look at that slam dunk contest and I'm like, "Who? Who are these guys?" Like,
Well, I think there's that element of it too, and to me,
yeah,
it's just the fact that, like, yeah, I think they've done everything. Like, there's just not much else they can do at this point. I
right.
feel like it should take a few years off, unless you get the star power to do it. Then it'd be a little different. I mean, the greatest recent ones that we've had were Aaron Gordon. I mean, they were the two Aaron Gordon ones, right? It was Aaron Gordon and Derek Jones Jr., and it was Aaron Gordon and Zach LaVine. Like, those were the two where it was like, oh yeah, no, those were great. Every other one is stunk. Do you even
Mhm.
remember who won last year's dunk contest?
I didn't watch it. I
I'm telling
didn't
you, I
watch it.
watched it, but I don't remember who won it. Like, I'm
Yeah.
legitimately telling you, you could give me a list of names, like it'd be Who Wants a Millionaire style, where you have 4, And I would have an equal 25% chance of all of it. Unless it was the
Yeah.
year that Steph won. I know Steph went crazy the one year because it felt like a legacy thing. I don't remember if that was last year or the year before. But, I mean, yeah, it's at the point now with the dunk, or that was the 3-point contest, not even the dunk contest.
Mhm.
How to get back to the 3-point contest? That was weird.
You were thinking about winners, and you ended up on the 3-point contest instead of dunk contest winners.
Oh, Steph clutched it that year. That's why. But no, I really the dunk contest has definitely lost a little bit at this point. Like it doesn't have the juice for sure that it even had for us growing up in the
Ah,
2000s.
you know who won it last year?
Who?
Obi Toppin.
I wouldn't have got. I mean, Obi Toppin's a great dunker. Like that doesn't surprise me because he's one of the better dunkers in the league. But I would have never got that.
Could you name I'd be willing to bet. Yeah, that's the winners. Okay, I'd be willing to bet that you probably couldn't tell me the dunk contest winners. Dude,
Dude,
I don't
I'm telling you, you'd probably win.
I
Like
know
it's
that's what I'm
probably
saying.
free money.
I don't think you could tell me the winner from after Zach LaVine won in 2016. I bet you'd have a hard time giving me any of the winners after that.
No, Derrick Jones Jr. won because that
You're
was the
right,
other Aaron,
2020.
that was the
Yep,
other Aaron Gordon year. That was
yep.
the other year where it was actually quite good.
You're right, 2020. You got Anthony Simmons, 2021.
Oh, Simons won in 2021. Wow, I would have
Yeah.
never got that.
Donovan Mitchell won in 2018. Glenn Robinson the third in 2017. It's like
I
I
forgot
mean,
Donovan Mitchell was in the dunk contest. That's crazy. Like at least there's some star power, but
and our boy
yeah,
Terrence Ross won it in 2013. He'll come up later on in the episode.
was 2013. I think that might have been the dunk contest. It was either 13 or no, I guess it was 14. Where they let them have an unlimited amount of times in a minute, and it was so bad.
It
But
might have been
the only reason I remember that dunk contest is because that's where Tim and I said, "Hey, let's do the podcast." Like
20.
that's
That's
the
when
biggest memory of that.
John Wall won that year,
It's
2014.
fun. I mean, it stunk, but that's cool. At least Sean Wall was there. There's some star power a little bit.
I guess. So yeah, there you go.
The only
That
other
is
thing
that.
from All-Star Game that I know we want to talk about for sure is that they're doing the draft
Oh
last, but you
yeah.
have to pick your reserves first and not your starters so they can avoid people being picked last. Justin, that is at the risk of sounding like a boomer, that is the lamest and softest thing I've ever heard in my life. We are really worried about an NBA guy who, not just any NBA guy, an all-star player's feelings if they get picked last in the All-Star game. That is just so unserious and so ridiculous.
If the NBA wanted to do anything to avoid it, here's what they should have done, in my opinion. Regular draft. If you are the last pick, there is an incentive of, say, 10,000 to your charity of choice if you score over 20 points in the game or something like that. You know what I mean? Like,
oh, you got me with charity. At first, I'm like, Justin, I'm not paying these guys to get picked last.
No, but think about it. If you are the last pick, like, here's my prediction. It's probably like Lauri Markkanen, who ends up being the last because like you said, they're picking the reserves first. So you don't think us watching or be like, who's the last of the reserves picked? Oh, that's the last person, period.
It's not even an insult. That's what's crazy.
Right,
it's
right,
like,
right.
oh no, you're the worst NBA All-Star. Like last year, I think the last pick was James Harden.
Right. Now, one of the arguments that I saw on NBA.com was because the reserve pool is far deeper and more like diverse in terms of player types, you can use strategy more to pick a more compelling team potentially. But again, it's the All-Star game, so
you can do that anyway. Yeah. Like that's the thing. If we're picking straight up,
but think about it. You can pick these more specific players and then pick the starters around those talent. It's kind of a cool. I do like that idea. It's like you're shaping a team to be.
But I don't need to change
right.
the whole like structure of the draft to do that. Right. I do that naturally live. Like if you want to take a minute to make your team make more sense from a fit perspective, you can still do that live. Yeah. We don't need to protect NBA All-Stars egos. This is the whole reason and the whole appeal of us doing this live was to see who get picked last, and maybe they take it personally. It's soft. Like, come on, we gotta knock it off. We're going too far now. It's a sport. Like,
I agree. And again, like we were just saying, it doesn't like somebody at the end of the day is still going to get picked last if it's a starter or if it's a reserved. What's going to happen is we're just going to look at the last pick of the reserves and go, that guy was the last pick of the whole NBA thing, period. Like that's you were the last. That's what it is. And I saw, like I said, I saw people predicting that it's gonna be Lauri Markkanen. So we'll see. In case you're wondering, MVP odds for the All-Star game, LeBron is in the lead. Giannis and Embiid are tied at number 2. Lillard and Irving are tied after Giannis and Embiid. So there we go. Team Giannis is a plus 130. Bron is minus 154. I would assume that's because of Giannis's potential injury to his wrist. Doesn't matter, no, but people are going to bet on it anyway.
did you see Vin Diesel's doing the intros?
I saw Ben Affleck was doing it for the celebrity game.
We don't got all stars. We got family. Whatever.
Well, I mean, the new Fast and Furious is coming out, so like, you know, do a little thing for that, I guess.
I just never mind. We're getting too distracted. Welcome everybody to the Driving Dish NBA podcast. My name is Kevin Rayfuse. Joining me as always, my co-host Justin Kuzart.
Thankful to be playing in my 4th hashtag NBA All-Star game. Big to my fans for voting.
Number 4. Okay, we're gonna do this quick. Who hasn't been in the league a long time, but is just getting All-Star games?
Pretty sure he's been there every year.
That's his 4th one?
I think so. Let me make sure that I'm not giving you false narrative. I think he's been every year. I'm gonna go and say yes, but he is going on his.
All right, my guess is Trae Young.
I was wrong. He had 1 year where he wasn't there. Correct draft year.
Oh, okay. It's not Luca, is it?
Yep.
Oh, what's the hashtag? The hashtag is, come on, Luca. So generic.
I bet that was a auto-scheduled tweet.
No, yeah, of course. Something like that. But yeah, Luca's gonna be in the All-Star game every year, I think, pending injury. I think for the rest of his career, I think that's a pretty safe bet at this point. I don't know if any of the sites have odds on that, but that feels like free money if they do.
Could you imagine placing that bet now, though? Like, you have to place that bet, and then you'd have to wait so long for a potential payoff.
It's like his 22nd year. It's like, Luca, retire, please.
It's like bro, chill.
Cash out. I'm trying.
Oh, yeah, at that point, I bet that's one of those things where you don't actually see the full bet through. You wait, like, 4 or 5 years of him going in a row, and then you just cash out. Like, you just get out.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like that way. It seems like that would be the logical thing to do.
Yeah.
Leave us a review on iTunes, good or bad. We'll read them on the podcast. If you're not an Apple user, Google Play Store, Spreaker, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn, Amazon Music, anywhere you find a podcast, you can find us.
Yep, and we are on YouTube if you want to check it out. Just search Drive and Dish NBA on YouTube, video version of the podcast if you want to see our smiling faces.
Now, a word from our sponsors.
So we come back with some buyout topics because there is some chatter about it, mainly the Kevin Love talk, as of right now, at least. Do you feel any kind of way about it? I know we were talking about there's some talk about him in the Heat right now. Does that help the Heat? Why'd the Heat wait till right now to finally do something? It's kind of my question, but I get it, I guess.
I think there are a lot of Heat fans who asked that question. I mean, yeah, the news as of an hour ago from Shams is that the Heat are the leaders to sign Kevin Love, who of course got bought out here by the Cavaliers. I was a little surprised. I mean, that was my first reaction. I was like, wait a minute, it's over in Cleveland. Like,
yeah,
I thought Kevin Love was borderline going to finish his career there. Like, he's already a champion. He doesn't need to ring chase. Like, he signed the bigger deal. You know, he just had basically. It felt like he almost stayed around to be the veteran guy. You know what I mean? The Cavaliers are a great team right now, contending in the Eastern Conference. And so you figured he would finish the season there. That part's a little bit of a surprise. Now, you know, he's gone out of their rotation recently. I mean, Dean Wade's been taking basically all of his minutes. So I guess in that sense, if you're Kevin Love, you want to go somewhere where you're going to play a little more. But yeah, I thought for sure Kevin Love at the minimum would ride out this season. Like you would think that if he's going to go somewhere else, and I mean, in Miami, he's obviously got a great shot to make the playoffs too. So I guess if you're looking to play more on court minutes from that perspective, it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
But I was a little surprised with the timing that, and again, and all the younger guys still there. Like I know it's a little bit of a locker room now once you add Donovan Mitchell into the mix with him having been in the league a few years, but it just seemed like Kevin Love relished that OG role there, and so I was a little surprised. I mean, obviously with the buyout there, it's a lot of respect. It's a mutual thing.
Yep.
Kevin Love is always going to be a guy who's beloved in Cleveland, as he should be. In terms of Miami, I think it makes sense though. Like I would imagine that he's got some sort of deal to be their backup five almost.
Yeah.
Play the minutes that Bam's not on the floor, but at the same time, obviously because he can still space a little bit, that he's compatible with Bam, you can play them together. I mean, we're talking about Kevin Love being only about a year away. I mean, last year he was essentially in the sixth man of the year conversation for Cleveland. So I still think there's probably some good basketball left in him here. Like I don't think anybody should be expecting to get peak Kevin Love right now. But in terms of a depth pickup for Miami, I do like this a lot. Obviously, a great guy to have around. He just is, he knows how to play at a higher level as they get closer to the playoffs. I mean, I'm with you a little bit. I'm a little surprised that that's all Miami's done to this point in
Yeah.
terms of the trade deadline. Their team's kind of a little wonky still, but no, I think Kevin Love is a smart pickup for them. They'll for sure benefit. I mean, I think he's averaging almost 9 points, 6.5 boards or something on the season. So, I mean, like I said, he's still got some competitive basketball left in him. If he wants to play playoffs, Miami's a good place to be. And, obviously, I think, of course, again, I think location matters a little bit here, too. Kevin Love doesn't need to ring chase at this point.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like it just seems like a weird spot for him to end up, but it's almost like the anti LeBron, like went backwards, or I guess technically doing the same thing LeBron did back in the day, going from the Cavs to the Heat, but go see him in a new uniform is what it is. I found a website from Clutch Sports that said the top 5 best buyout candidates um, that the Lakers could target. And Kevin Love was obviously on the list, but they acknowledged that the Miami Heat seemed to be the early favorite. They listed guys like Will Barton, John Wall, Seth Curry, and Dario Saric. Do you think any end up there? Dario was number 1 on their list, but is with OKC currently.
Well, so the interesting part is it's been floated a little bit, and because that kind of gets into the other major buyout candidate that I wanted to talk a little bit about today, and that is Russell Westbrook, who of course is not,
Mhm.
is on Utah as of right now via the Lakers trade. A buyout is pending. There's been a lot more smoke with the Clippers. I mean, that's been the big one, right? I mean, with John Wall being waived, they definitely need a backup guard. The Athletic reported that Paul George, even before the buyout got mentioned, basically went to the front office to vouch for him, but apparently Kawhi is gone as well. They've talked about bringing him in. Obviously, LA is home for Russell Westbrook. He already has been there with the Lakers, so I think there's plenty of appeal there. And the Clippers got a shot. The Clippers, when you look at the West, as competitive as it is, I still think in terms of a true contender, it's pretty wide open. And I think when you look at how the Clippers have been playing, namely the way Kawhi Leonard has been playing here
Yeah.
recently over the
Yeah.
last month, like they suddenly look like that title contender again that a lot of people thought they could be at the beginning of the season. Like that's a pretty good bet if you're Russell Westbrook. I mean, the other question was Miami. I mean, going back to that, right? I mean, a part of me would love it because, you get the Kevin Love, Russell Westbrook, UCLA reunion
Mhm.
back in South Beach. I think there are a lot of people who in Miami are rooting for it a little bit, kind of play that off the bench role that he was playing in LA. They need kind of that secondary scoring punch. They can let Russ be Russ, if you will, on the second unit. So I think that would make sense. I still, again, in my betting, no, the betting part of me would imagine that he's going to the Clippers just because I think the Clippers have the best title shot this year. At the end of the day, like Russ doesn't have that ring the way Kevin Love does. So, as good as Miami is, as much as I like Jimmy Butler, it sure feels like they're not quite there among the elite that they have been in the past in the East. Like it feels like they're a step behind Boston and Milwaukee at this point. Where again, the West a little bit more wide open. You talk about the Clippers, you talk about Phoenix, you talk about Denver. Um, but yeah, I mean, the only other two teams that have been floated really, or I think that were initially floated for Russ, were the Wizards, which, again, a lot of familiarity there, with his pre-Lakers destination there. If they're making a playoff push, the last time they were there, he had a lot of success.
Mhm.
And then the other one is the Bulls, which, we're going to talk about the Bulls a little bit later. I have no idea on earth what the Bulls are doing. Again, I want to save kind of my what are you doing here thoughts for a little bit later in the show, and who's balling, who's falling. So, I'll kind of save my thoughts on that again, but it feels like it's going to be the Clippers. I would say Miami's a secondary destination for Russ, but it feels like it's going to be the Clippers.
Yeah.
The John Wall experiment unfortunately didn't work. To that token, I could also see John Wall going to Miami. I think he kind of fits the mold of what they're looking for. So I could definitely see that happening. But yeah, I would think realistically we're going to see Russ in LA.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny because like, he just literally hops teams, essentially stays in the same city, and part of me feels like, you don't trade you don't trade inner city teams and stuff like that. You try to stay away from
Well,
that
they
stuff, but
didn't technically.
I know, but it's still like,
He doesn't
feels.
owe that loyalty to Lakers. Lakers got him
No, no,
out of
no. Oh,
there.
no, no, no. I'm not saying from him. He doesn't owe them anything, but like I don't know. If I'm a Lakers fan, I'll feel some kind of way about it.
I think they
Um,
already feel a way about it anyway.
That's fair. That's fair. And you mentioned you mentioned the teams that were at the top. It made me wonder, do you still have the Nuggets over the Suns in terms of like power rankings right now?
I want to, but no.
I
No,
think I
I think
do.
Phoenix is the favorite now.
Yeah,
Kevin Durant and Booker is gonna just be so much offense to overwhelm in the playoffs. Like, KD's just gonna make their life, or I should say Chris Paul's life is just made so much significantly easier now. I think Ayton can thrive as the 3 guy. Um, Denver's bench is what worries me a little bit. I'm still super high on Denver. Like, don't get me wrong. They're 27-4 at home too, which I think is huge. I am a little worried about their road record, just 14-14 on the road. That's the other thing with Memphis too, is like that. Memphis is 11-17 on the road, which is kind of surprising. But no, I think Denver is still right there. I think the Clippers are right there. And then there's a lot of good teams, but I don't really like the Warriors just aren't healthy. If the Warriors were healthy, I think it'd be a different story.
sure.
We'll see what happens as Kyrie gels with Luka. I mean, they're on a 3-game losing streak right now, but yeah,
And
I
I
would
would say,
think
but to that, yeah, I saw ESPN making a big deal out about the 3-game losing streak with Luca. And like one of those games, Kyrie, it might have been two. I can't remember off the top of my head, but definitely one of those games, Kyrie didn't play. And then the one that they did play together, they lost at the very end, which was clearly a chemistry thing. Like
yeah.
they were both trying to get each other the ball, and it's like, yeah, that'll be fixed by the time the playoffs roll around. So like I don't put much into that 3-game losing streak, but like ESPN was really pushing it hard.
Yeah, I mean, there's always chemistry issues, and that was kind of the thing. Like that, this really shouldn't surprise
Well, and
anyone. They are learning to play together, and I don't
yeah,
think that Kyrie makes Dallas's ceiling higher, just because I think of the
yeah.
duo, like they can reach the heights that those two can
But
reach
I
together.
think
But yeah, of course, it's going to take time. Like I don't think you should just come in and expect this to be some insta gel.
well, and I think too, from a chemistry standpoint, Luca's always used to probably until now at the end of the game, he's the one with the ball, and now you do have a second option that could potentially have the game at the end of the ball or at
Yep.
the ball at the end of the game. But like it seriously is I think it's just a gelling thing. Like I don't put much into that one. So
No, I put 0 stock into that 3-game losing streak. Like, call
yeah,
me if it heats up and, we have,
right. If
I guess
we're
15 games from now, if they're still struggling and they can't seem to get it
yeah,
together and Dallas is still muddling around 6th and around 500, which is, I mean, they're 31-29 right now, then I think you're a little more concerned about it.
yeah,
But I'm not quite that level there yet.
mm,
I'm quietly there with Memphis, but that's for another pod. I don't really want to dive too deep into that now, but um their home and road splits, like I said, kind of wild too.
yeah,
All right, who's balling, who's falling? Our NBA version of the stock market. We always like to start with the good before we start with the bad. I did realize as I say that now that we did skip our friend Terrence Ross going to Phoenix a
Oh,
little bit. He was eventually going to go to Dallas, but I do want to mention real quick that that was a good pickup for them. It finally happened with Orlando, right? It feels like Terrence Ross has been like, and I mean, he's been out of the rotation, but it's like we've been talking about Terrence Ross leaving Orlando for ages now. I mean, obviously, he's the human torch for a reason. He can shoot the basketball. Phoenix needs depth. I think it's an easy fit.
yeah. Yeah, I was worried. I thought for whatever reason, I thought you said, Dallas for a second, but I was like, "Wait, he didn't go
No,
to
he was
Dallas?"
supposed to. That was the thing. It
Yeah,
pivoted last minute. He was
yeah.
supposed to go to Dallas and then pivoted. But yeah, like I said, good pickup for Phoenix for sure.
Mhm.
All right. So balling for me this week. I am going to start, of course, with Joe Mazzulla. Officially take the interim tag off him for the Boston Celtics. Now officially their head coach. I mean, going forward, he's got the deal here for not just the rest of the season, but going forward as well. Boston 42-17 on the season. This really shouldn't surprise anyone. They look like they can get right back to the finals. I mean, when you look at the Eastern Conference, it sure feels like them and Milwaukee are the two top dogs and are on the course for a conference finals matchup. Um, and give a lot of credit to him too, because this was a tough role to step into. I mean, last minute, and I know there's a lot of familiarity there with him being an assistant, but the
Yeah,
last minuteness of it with how the Ime Udoka situation played out, with a coach in Udoka who is super popular and beloved in the locker room, a guy who clearly had a ton of success and got them to the finals last year. Like, this is not an easy role to step into, and give Joe Mazzulla a lot of credit. He stepped into it. He's got these guys thriving and competing every night again, and they look like they're primed and ready to make a finals run. Like, it's definitely well deserved in my opinion.
yep, and, with that announcement too, they were talking about how, Aduka is no longer affiliated with the team officially, I think is the done part of it, which is so wild because I mean, we haven't heard anything since really the initial, like, whatever went down. It's been kinda quiet. I know Stephen A made some comments about it the other day, but really, we haven't heard anything update-wise,
No, I mean, it
on
was the
that front.
Brooklyn. Like, it was that whole
Yeah,
Brooklyn fiasco. And then Brooklyn backed off, and you're right, hired Jacques Vaughn instead, and we haven't really heard a word about him since. I think he's gonna come like, I think Ime Udoka is going to get another job again, unless something damning comes out. Like, that's the thing is, if the Celtics release a report and he was actually like, I just don't want to accuse him of anything that he hasn't
right,
been formally accused of yet. Like, we know there
of
was some
course.
sort of team rule broken. It seems like there was misconduct. I don't know whether it was a team misconduct or if it rose to some level higher. Um, I don't have that information, so I don't want to speculate on it.
Agreed.
But if nothing criminal was committed and this was more of a team-oriented violation, I do think he'll get another NBA job at some point. I just think it may not be for
I
a second.
But would that's the part that's weird to me is, like, he did so well that you would think he would get pretty picked up pretty quick if there isn't anything.
Well, that's what makes me think that there is something, because I
Yeah,
think where there's smoke, there's fire. Like, I think there's a reason that all these other teams, because you're right, clearly Ime Udoka is an excellent coach.
right. And the players like him. I don't know, it's like it's very weird. So, either way, we can move on. My ballin is going out to Michael Jordan, who celebrated his birthday in a way I probably will never celebrate a birthday. Um,
I mean, you got time. He turned 60. You got like 20, yeah, 28 years. So you're 30. No, you're not 32 yet.
well, I'm
29, I
31.
guess.
Yeah, I got time, but I promise you I'm not making more than 10 I'm not making enough that 10,000,000 is nothing to me.
Oh, stop selling yourself short. You never know.
Into it, you think I'm gonna do that in 29
We
years?
got to dream high, Justin. Stop selling yourself short.
I'll be lucky to get to 1,000,000 in 29 years. But either way, the, the the record-breaking $10,000,000 donation to Make-A-Wish Foundation for his 60th birthday, which was very nice, obviously, and very surprising, but happy that he chose to celebrate his 60th birthday that way, Michael Jordan.
No, yeah, definitely pretty cool. My favorite thing, of course, just being an NBA internet person, is yeah, I think everyone is very aware of the F them kids meme
Yeah.
with MJ. And so somebody took that meme and crossed out the CK and put ND instead. And so it's just that picture and it says fund them kids. That's been my favorite response to
I
it
love
so
that.
far. But yeah, I mean, what do we happy 60th
Dude.
birthday, Michael Jordan, man. We're one of the two best players to ever play basketball on the planet. That's not me saying anything about the GOAT debate. That's me saying we're not doing this conversation. This is a strictly Michael Jordan appreciation segment. Like we said, one of having the Last Dance was cool for us because that's the thing is it's
Mhm.
like, I think with people our age, we realistically watched more of Michael Jordan on the Wizards than we did in anything else. Like, Michael Jordan's second three-peat, we were 6, 7, and 8 for respectively. So I think it's, we didn't really get to enjoy that the way. I mean, obviously Last Dance was great in that regard a little bit too. But yeah, I mean, this is, I mean, when you think of the NBA, this is the guy who comes to a lot of people's minds. I love the fact that he's still active with the Hornets as the owner. I love that, his entry at the NBA 75 was absolutely incredible. And it just seems like Jordan's finally lightening up a little bit in his old age. Like, dude, everybody loves you, man. Like, you're an icon. Well, I understand the competitive nature all the time, but it's like,
Mhm.
enjoy the fruits of your labor a little bit, Mike.
I agree. I completely agree, and so, it's fun that he's, still doing stuff and
Except the
being in the
Magic
spotlight
Johnson. I will say that. I want him trash talking Magic Johnson or Larry Bird every time he sees
every
him. That was one
second
of
he
my
has a
favorite
chance.
clips when he's like, lace him up right now, Magic. I'll take you one right now. And Magic's just laughing. He's cracking up.
And that's I like that
He's
too,
a
and
psychopath. I love it.
it's kinda the same thing with, like, Tiger Woods, right? Like, you and I bring that up because he's been golfing this week, a little bit, and, like, kind of went viral for a joke thing he was doing with one of the other golfers when he outdrove him. If you wanna see what he did, you can look it up, but got a little bit of heat for it, but it's like, I would rather my Tiger Woods be a little bit not petty, but still have that dog in him a little bit, like, bring it out every once in a while, but also be a human, and I think that's what Michael Jordan's doing a bit.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, he's so influential and the guys love him. Like that's the
Mhm.
thing is like the other greats love him. And I think that was one of the things when Kareem passed LeBron that I think Kareem said he regretted a little bit is that he didn't kind of have those relationships with a lot of the guys. And like, look, I
Sure.
understand it. Everybody's different, but I I think if anything, especially post Kobe passing, has hammered in that these moments are fleeting a lot of times. And, you want to see these guys together and having these because you just don't get them that often.
Yeah.
And you got to appreciate, you do have to appreciate these people while they're here. Like we said, because it is because that's the other thing with all these NBA 75 celebrations and everything like that, right? Is it's like Kobe Bryant should still be here. Like that's what's
Yeah.
disappointing is like I want to see him trash talking, Tim Duncan, for example,
Yeah.
at the
Him
NBA
and Dirk
75 going.
and yeah, like, let them
Yeah,
all
like
trash
lace him
talk.
up right now. Let's go. Kobe's trash talking him in German or something like
Yeah.
that. That's what I'd be really rooting for. Uh, Speaking of Michael Jordan note, let's go balling right to his franchise that he had so much success with, the Chicago Bulls. The Chicago Bulls are out of play in position as of recording this. They've lost 6 in a row. I believe that's the only losing longer streak. There's two. One is Houston's got 7 in a row, and the Spurs got 14 in a row. And I thought about doing the Spurs as fallen, but I honestly think that that's probably good for them because they're in the
It's
Wemby
a
sweepstakes. So it's
ball
like,
and falling.
no, never
Yeah.
mind. It's like, yeah, that's fallen with the direction. For the Bulls, I guess that's kind of my thing. Is it's like you look at where you're at now at the All-Star break. You're 26 and 33. You don't have your first rounder this year. You're 3 and 7 in your last 10. Some of it is out of your control, obviously, with Lonzo Ball. And that's still just so unfortunate. I mean, there's a report out that the Bulls are going to announce he's shut down, but like he still can't run and cut at this point. Like
Mhm.
that's really just sad from a human perspective, that Lonzo's having to deal with that. And that's, of course, out of their hands. But it just amazes me how you see this team going into the trade deadline and it's borderline malpractice that they didn't do anything. Like that's my point is that they didn't do anything. Like you just kept
Get some picks, get
rolling with it.
some
Like try to
yeah,
restock the war chest a little bit. They
yeah.
had that good half a season last year, but it's like, yo, you've got good players. I mean, somebody like Zach LaVine is going to bring back quite the haul. I mean, Vooch is getting older, but he'll
But
get you
someone would want
something.
Vooch. Yeah, someone would want him. A contender would want him for sure.
Not for much, I don't think at this point. Like Vooch is definitely declining as much as I love Vooch's game. DeMar DeRozan's somebody who still has a lot of value if they want to move on. Even guys though like Alex Caruso, that's somebody who a
We
lot of
talked about
contenders I
him.
think would have taken a swing on and brought into their rotations. And the fact that they just didn't do anything, like there's no direction with this franchise. And I think the fact that the front office saw this older aging group with nothing in the war chest and said, we're going to go forward.
Yeah.
I mean, like we said, Justin, they're not in the play-in position right now. It's not even like, oh, whatever. Maybe they could still make a run at the Eastern Conference. Like they're behind teams like Toronto, who we talked about blowing up, who have passed them now. I mean, they're below teams like Washington. Brooklyn's different, but I mean, if Brooklyn stays ahead of them, for example, though, given everything that's gone there, I don't know what they're doing, and I don't really know what the game plan is here. But to me, like when you look at the bleakest outlooks in the NBA, I don't think the Bulls get talked about enough as one of them. Like, I truly don't think they have any direction. They're firmly stuck in the middle, but at the lower half of the middle, which is even worse. So, like, you're expensive and you're bad. Like, those are the two. It's one thing. Being bad is not the worst thing in the world if you do it with design. Like, look at Detroit, look at Houston, look
Yeah.
at San Antonio. Like, those are definitively bad teams this year. But I don't think anyone's questioning their direction. Like, we like what they're doing. They're acquiring talent. They're trying to get their high picks. Like,
They're working for Wemby. They're literally trying to get Wemby.
yeah,
Like that's what they're doing.
yeah, and your consolation prize again in Scoot Henderson, not that bad
Yeah.
either. But yeah, it's really, I feel like a few weeks ago we talked about this with Washington a little bit, where it's kind of like
Yeah.
I don't know what they're doing.
Yeah. What would
Chicago's right
you?
there too.
Who do you put as the top 3 bleakest teams in the NBA?
Oh, okay, all right. Let me look
I'm
at all of
making
them
you.
right
I'm
now.
making you
Are
call
you
some
talking?
people out
Are you talking all time, or you're talking right this second?
right this second. Obviously, the Bulls are on there for you.
Chicago's on there for me right now. I want to say Charlotte, but I think again they're in the Wemby sweepstakes and they have LaMelo, so it's hard for
Mm-hmm.
me to be like they're one. Um, I part of me wants to no, I don't want to say Portland because if Portland pulls the plug on Dame, they could get a
Do you
lot
put?
better at any time.
Would
I
you
think they're all in the East, dude. I think they're all the playing teams right now. Like I think two or at least two of them for sure. I think the Wizards and Bulls are two of them, and then after that,
Pacers?
no, because the Pacers at least have Hallie and a couple young guys. Like Matthew Urban's a good pick.
Raptors?
No, the Raptors just won a title recently, and the Raptors have young guys and Pascal Siakam. I don't think it's them at all.
Okay.
Atlanta's my borderline, but it's hard for me to say that when they have Trae Young.
Yeah.
Like, I think Atlanta's definitively been
And
disappointing.
and they have a lot of assets and other players that can get them things if they have to do whatever they have to do. Like if they want to keep the team as is or if they want to make some trades, like they've got guys that people want.
Yeah, there's nobody in the West who's really middling right now. Like, that's the thing is, I mean, I guess Minnesota, if you're concerned about their long-term outlook, but like Anthony
Yeah.
Edwards continues to develop their, you know, and their chest is still there if they really want to make a move. I guess it just stinks that you'd have to move Karl Anthony Towns. I mean, I think it feels like Portland is a rudderless ship right now. In the sense that I don't get why they're not blowing it up at this point. Like it's just clearly not working. If Dame wants to stay here, that's fine, but I think you can move on in every different direction. Um, but even them, like they just don't hit me as quite the level of bleak. And then the worst teams in the league, like the Detroits, the Houstons, and San Antonios, again, when they're all in that sweepstake, and all of them have good young players. Like that's the thing too, is it's
Yeah.
like you have guys. I mean, maybe San Antonio has the least right now, but
They
San
have the
Antonio also, I think, has a ton of picks going forward. Like they're
yeah.
going to pick them up, and I trust San Antonio to develop.
Yeah, I would say like from a bleak standpoint is they have if they don't get like the 1 or the 2 pick this year, they're the ones that are going to hurt the most from that, right? Like the
I
other
mean,
teams, they've already got guys that they can work around. Where I know San Antonio's got guys, but like it really feels like they're the ones that, like, they need Wemby, or you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, Detroit's gotta, Detroit's got Cade Cunningham
that's
already.
what I
Like,
mean,
Cade
yeah,
Cunningham looks like a star. The Rockets, I don't know that they have their star yet necessarily, but they have a lot of good players between Şengün, between Jalen Green, between Kevin Porter Jr., who's been good since
yeah,
going there. Jabari Smith is still an unfinished product at this point, but obviously a top 3 pick there as well. So, um, they don't have that guy. They kind of remind me in Orlando of that sense before they got
mhm,
Paulo. Orlando's going to be too good not to get it. That's the thing. Is Orlando now? I mean, I think Orlando's making a playoff push. We'll see if they get in, but I don't think they're anywhere as bleak now. And again, this can pivot quickly. We see how franchises' fortunes can change, but like when you just look at their long term outlook, like I don't know, OKC's got guys, Utah's got a zillion picks. Golden State just won the title last year. New Orleans, the injury is what you worry about, and we'll get to that a little bit later with
yeah,
Zion, but you like a lot of their guys there. You know, who else is there? I mean, the Lakers just won a title recently. I'm not going to call the Lakers the worst outlook in the NBA. It's just incorrect.
mhm,
I guess it's Indy if it's a third one, but even that I don't really feel that good about. Just because at least I like a couple of their young guys,
yeah,
especially Hallie. Like I'm also just super high on Tyrese Halliburton, so I think maybe
okay.
that plays in a little bit as well. But who has fallen for you this week?
Well, I just wanted to go on record that you said, for the fan bases, that it is the Bulls,
Oh
Wizards, and
no, I might go to
Pacers.
DC in a few weeks, bro. I'm gonna be banned from DC, but we might go in a few weeks.
Take up your problem, with, at Refuse to Lose on Twitter. You can,
No, that's
argue that
fair.
one here.
That's fair. I'll take it. I really want to go to Chicago too. So
My fallen is actually going to one of the teams we just kinda talked about. It is the Hawks, who went into the, All-Star weekend not looking great. They're 4-6 in their last 10. They lost their last 2. And those last 2 losses, one was to the Knicks. They lost 122 to 101, and then they lost to the Hornets 144 to 138. So defense, and their other loss, which would have been a few ago to the Pelicans, was 116 to 107. But I bring that up because their defense has been a little bit of a problem. They gave up 74 points in the first half to Charlotte, followed up by 70 points in the second half. And then they apparently, some reports were coming out that on Tuesday after that game, they had a 90-minute film session to point out the problems they were having on defense. So then Wednesday comes around against the Knicks, and they gave up 66 points in the first half. They were straight up not having a good time going into the All-Star break, and probably were more than ready to take a break. So hopefully, they can figure out whatever that was, whatever problems they were running through, and fix it for the, second half of the season.
yeah, and I think more alarming were the comments by Nate McMillan after the game because I mean going in, you mentioned that loss to Charlotte. I mean that's an inexcusable
That's
brutal
tough.
loss for a team
Yeah.
that's trying to that's in the play-in game right now that's trying to get out of it and get into the top 6 and not have to worry about that. And then so you go in there with an opportunity on your home court nonetheless to against the Knicks to make up ground on one of those teams directly on a team that's been your rival a bit here in the past few seasons with that tension boiling up. And they just didn't come out and perform, like you said, defensively. And after that game, Nate McMillan said, uh, you know, they're mentally and physically fried. He said that's what they look
Mhm.
like. Like those are his exact words. And he talked about that defensively. He said they were a step behind, whether it was defensively, whether guarding, whether it was going for a loose ball. He said their legs are just kind of showing a little bit when they're shooting on offense, that it looks like they have tired legs. They're not getting their follow throughs all the way. And so to that extent, I think then you probably, yeah, I think the positive is that you go into the All-Star break and you say, hey, maybe we are just exhausted. It's all going bad right now. We've had 2 horrible games. We reset, we come back, and
Let's go. Yeah.
even in spite of everything, we're still in play-in game position. Like we control our destiny to get into the playoffs. Like I'm pulling up the standings again here real quick, but they're not really that far out of it. I mean, yeah, they're 3 back of Miami right now, and they're 3.5 back of the Knicks for 6. So they definitely have some work to do. And again, it matters as well because they only have a half game up on the Wizards and they only have a full game up on Toronto. They're 3 up on Chicago for first out. But yeah, I mean, they're under 500 right now. Like, this is a team that's 29-30. They have a negative overall point differential. Um, you know, every one of those games matters. And like we said against the Knicks, those are the games you start having to win. You really got to look at their schedule the rest of the way because again, you're going to run out of opportunities. Now they still got,
Mhm.
and for the record, I very much think that they're getting into the play-in game position. Like I'm not. They have too much talent there between Trae Young and between DeJounte Murray, John Collins, Bogdanovich, etc. To really fade out that badly. But the schedule, they've got a couple important ones early on coming up. I mean, right off the rip, you got Cleveland and Brooklyn. Obviously, Brooklyn's changed a little bit. Now all these are at home. Their first 4 games after the All-Star break are at home. You got
Mhm.
Washington. That's super important in terms of keeping them off your tail. You got Portland, but then you got a home and home with Miami, or not even home and home, excuse me. You got 2 straight road games against Miami and 2 straight road games against Washington. Gotta wonder how that happened on the schedule. Uh, but those are all, I mean, Miami's directly the team in front of you, and Washington's directly the team behind you. Like, you've got 5 key swing games right there that could really determine how the rest of the playoff race goes. But their schedule's pretty tough the rest of the way. Like, you've got Boston, you got Minnesota twice, you got Golden State, you've got another one with Cleveland, you've got a game with Indy, you've got the Sixers, you've got Boston to end the season. They've got Chicago and Washington again. Like, they do control a lot of their destiny with Washington. That's good. I think they got to play them here 4 times down the stretch. But I mean, they have 3 quote unquote light games, if you will. They've got a game against Detroit. They've got a game. Actually, they do. They've won against San Antonio, but really that's it. Like, those are the only quote unquote cupcake games that you have from teams that are not trying to win. Atlanta's going to have to come out. Like, you're running out of time if you're going to try to avoid that play-in game spot. And I don't think they're going to catch the Knicks. I think the Knicks are playing too well right now.
Yeah. Well, they got their guy in the 3-point contest, so
like, Julius Randle's having an all-star year. We talked about it recently. Like, he deserves a lot. Like, he bounced back. He looks like the player he was 2 years ago.
yeah.
Like, he deserves a lot of credit. I mean, him and Brunson. Like, Brunson's been phenomenal. Ain't nobody talking about that contract now.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, it's absolutely one of those situations where um I don't know, like, when you're 3 points below the league average, there's no one else out there. Like, what's Klay Thompson doing this All-Star weekend? He's busy. We can't get Klay to come back.
He's chilling, man. He's taking some
Steph's
time
already
off.
there. What's Steph doing? What's
Yeah,
Book
throw him.
doing? Book won this before, I think.
Did he?
I think he won it a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, you might be right. You might be right. All right. Last thing we wanted to talk about was an injury with Zion. Obviously, a big talker for the Pelicans and the Pelicans fan base. It's interesting. I was looking up lineups for the Pelicans, and 2 of their most used lineups, their more effective one, I guess we'll say, is CJ McCollum, Brandon Ingram, Herbert Jones, Zion, and Valanciunas. And then their second most used is CJ McCollum, Trey Murphy, Brandon Ingram, Jones, and Valanciunas. So essentially moving Jones to the power forward and bringing in Murphy. And when they do that, they're like, it's bad when Zion's not in that lineup. Like, it goes low, right? That their differential is minus 23 compared to a plus 10. Their points per possession go from, with Zion at a 120.7 down to a 106. Like, they're feeling it with Zion out.
Yeah, and I mean, that's been good because it's been not just Zion, but it's been a lot of health in general. I mean, Brandon
Mhm.
Ingram's missed time, CJ McCollum's missed
Exactly.
time. They got some depth, a little bit of a boost as well in the buyout market, picking up Josh Richardson. So he's already getting minutes for them. But like you
Mhm.
said, Valanciunas has missed time. But I mean, really, yeah, it's super disappointing, right? Because we've had Zion playing peak Zion all-star basketball, like playing like the superstar he was. This is a Pelicans team that was as high as 3 in the Western Conference at one point.
Mhm.
Um, and now the reality is like you worry because this is a hamstring injury. Like, these are the ones that just linger a little bit. It's the one that really slowed Harden down a few years
Yeah.
ago. That's the injury that when the Rockets were in the playoffs and having those 7-game classics with the Warriors, like that's what really did Chris Paul in at the end of that series. Like hamstring injuries just tend to nag, and the fact that it got re-aggravated, I mean, he's not going to get an update till after the All-Star break, which, I didn't really think we were worried about seeing them anyway. But yeah, I mean, if the Pelicans are going to go forward, they need Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson healthy, namely. This team is good. They have enough depth that they're going to be competitive in games without, but it just looks like when they're finally ready to do something in the playoffs that, we're finally talking about Zion for something other than injuries. And it just stinks. Like it stinks that it's been re-aggravated and that we're having to talk about this again. It's a hamstring injury. I think he's in shape. So I think you take a lot of, relief in that. This
Well, and
isn't something that's interesting and is going to knock him out necessarily for the rest of the season. But yeah, I mean, the reality here is like, I don't think we need to rehash Zion Williamson's injury history. But even if this is bad luck, the reality is that this just feels like a familiar story.
Yeah, and it's one of those things where, like, you want to be safe with it, take your time and let it heal properly, but there is a sense of urgency to, try to get the guys back and healthy because they're sitting at about 500. I mean, they're 30-29, sitting 7th in the West, but the Mavericks are only one game ahead of that and the Suns are only one ahead of that. Like everything's so close, like they can easily pop themselves back in with a few wins. But to that is you get a few losses, you're going to really start dropping here. I mean, the Warriors are right behind them, only 2 games. Thunder are right behind them with another game. And Jazz and Trailblazers are right there. Lakers are, you would imagine they start trying to make a push too. So there's going to be a lot of teams trying to take advantage of other teams when they fall a little bit. And, if you're the Pelicans, having Zion back sooner than later would be great, but you also have to play the game of like, if you bring him back too soon and we re-aggravate again, it's the carousel. It'll just keep going around and around and around.
Oh yeah, you can't possibly run the risk of bringing him back, especially with a hamstring. Like that should be
Yeah,
everybody in the NBA should know that. Because I mean, even this season, like Devin Booker, for example, has dealt with hamstring this season. It's not the one that you rush back
you're
under any
right.
circumstance. But yeah, I mean, the Pelicans are already really thin at scoring right now. With Ingram, his shooting touch has still been kind of off. Like it's coming around a little bit, but I mean, Zion was averaging what 26 points a game.
26,
Um,
yeah.
I think again they have enough to stay afloat. Breaking that since that 10-game losing streak, they've kind of evened out here a little bit. But there's not the good thing for them is that their schedule just isn't really as daunting. Like when you talked about Atlanta's schedule, theirs isn't quite as bad. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's just really disappointing. That's the biggest thing right now. It's really, really disappointing to see them just not be able to get anything going. And to have the setback. We were talking about
Mhm.
them, maybe contending and winning finals this year. Or not
And
winning
they
finals this year. That's a little far, but
whoa, yeah.
making a playoff run. And like you said, they're talking about it. They're right in the mix right now. Like they're not that far from bouncing out of it. And you expect Utah, Portland, and the Lakers, especially now with D'Lo in the mix, to really make runs at this. Like this play, what's gone from what felt like a formality at this point, it would be incredibly, incredibly disappointing if New Orleans were to flame out of the playoffs and just not even make the play-in game
Yeah.
after all that, especially when you look at some of the teams
But
that would likely get in over them.
that card is on the table now
It is.
because it's where we are. So
No, like
it's
I said, the good thing is the schedule. The schedule is the best thing they got going for them. It is a little bit lighter down the rest of the season, and I think that's already helped them early. I'm pulling it up as we speak. So yeah, I mean,
the
since the 10-game losing streak, they beat the Lakers, they beat the Kings, they beat the Hawks, they lost to Cleveland, they beat OKC, and then they lost to the Lakers right before the break. Coming back, you've got Toronto, New York, Orlando, Portland, Golden State, Sacramento, Dallas, OKC, Portland, in the Lakers, and that gets you. And then you got 2-2 with Houston, and one even after that with San Antonio, and then Charlotte. That gets you through March 23rd. There's a lot of winnable games in that mix. Like when you talk about the Houston games, the Charlotte game, the San Antonio games, even the games against Golden State being injured with OKC, with Portland. Like if you're going to make the playoffs, those are games you have to win. And the good thing is, I think they are very winnable as long as the rest of their guys are healthy. Like San Antonio's got enough gas here to stay afloat. It gets a little tougher once you get towards the end of March and April, but if they can stack wins here, especially against teams like Portland, they can really kind of do themselves a favor in terms of locking in that, at least get to the play-in spot. Because if Zion's healthy, again, if he gets back come playoff time, nobody is going to want to play this team. In a one-gamer, right, especially in a play-in, I could see them upset a lot of people.
Well, into that, New Orleans has the third easiest strength of schedule remaining in the league. The only teams that have an easier schedule, according to Tankathon, is the Pistons and the Mavs. So hopefully that helps them out a little bit in their quest to making that playoff.
The Pistons are probably pissed about that, man. The Pistons are like, make it harder.
Yeah,
can we play Boston and Milwaukee every night?
Oh, and if you're wondering, the 76ers have the hardest schedule remaining, so yeah, no big deal.
I don't want to talk about this. I've been through enough. Can we talk about any sports other than Philadelphia sports, please?
Okay, we don't have to. We'll just end the episode. No more Philly talk.
The Flyers are weirdly the worst franchise in the not weirdly, but the Flyers are the worst franchise in the city. Even with the losses, the Eagles feel like they're going to be around for a bit. The Phillies look great going into spring training. Like their owners decided that it's really great because John Middleton does what every billionaire sports owner should do. And he says, wow, I'm getting older. I might die soon. And I realize that this money isn't going with me. So I really want to win a championship before I die. So I'm going to spend all the money.
I'm about it, man. And, I'm going to a Phillies game in a few weekends. So
yeah, you're on spring training. Clearwater's great. Just like as a city and as a spring training venue, Clearwater is one of my favorite places in Florida. Definitely miss it. Thank you, everybody, for listening to this episode of Driving Dish NBA podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. Leave us a review on iTunes. We'll read them on the podcast. If you are not an Apple user, y'all know the drill. Anywhere you can find a podcast, you can find us.
And if you are not into listening to podcasts, you need some video versions of it for whatever reason. We are on YouTube. You can find us Driving Dish NBA podcast, and we are there.